您好，观众朋友，欢迎收看新闻1+1。柳叶刀是医生做手术的时候手术刀的名字，同时它也是这个世界上非常知名的医学期刊的名字。没错，柳叶刀。它在业界究竟拥有怎样的这种地位？这你透过很多不是学医的人都知道这本杂志的存在，就能感受得到。从疫情开始一直到现在，有多位来自中国的医生和专家的论文发表在柳叶刀的杂志上。
创刊于1823年的《柳叶刀》是全世界历史最悠久、影响力最大的医学期刊之一，由艾斯维尔公司出版。如今，它已发展成一个期刊家族，旗下包括综合医学周刊《柳叶刀》及19本专业学术期刊。《柳叶刀》始终秉承其核心理念，即坚持医学必须服务社会，知识必须改变社会，用最好的科学创造更好的生活。理查德·霍顿于1990年加入《柳叶刀》，1995年任职主编，目前是《柳叶刀》系列期刊的总负责人，《柳叶刀》总编。他关注全球健康和医疗事业发展，并致力于推动对人类社会的贡献。《柳叶刀》从2008年开始主导出版中国专刊，并于2010年在北京设立《柳叶刀》亚洲办公室。
那接下来呢，我们就将连线在伦敦家中的《柳叶刀》的总编理查德·霍顿先生。霍顿先生您好，今天呢是非常对于中国人来说是一个记忆中很重要的日子，因为疫情，武汉封城整整100天。这么长时间过后，您怎么看待当初的这个中国决定？
Well, thank you. China's decision to lock down Wuhan showed that the government acted tremendously decisively in the face of an acute emergency. And by taking those actions, China led the world in the response to this pandemic. It was not only the right thing to do, but it also showed other countries how they should respond in the face of such an acute threat. So I think we have a great deal to thank China for about the way that it handled the outbreak in Wuhan.
在2月20号的时候呢，《柳叶刀》的杂志上就刊登了一个由全世界几十名公共卫生专家来共同撰写的反对这个病毒不是来自于大自然，还有一些阴谋论。当初为什么要发表这样的一个声明？
As the Director General of the World Health Organization has said, we've been fighting two pandemics in recent months. One, a pandemic that has been caused by a virus, and two, a pandemic that has been caused by disinformation. And the pandemic of disinformation is in many ways as dangerous as the pandemic caused by the virus. And the story that you mention is one of those examples of a conspiracy theory that risks destabilizing our response to this virus. It's very important to understand the origins of this virus and to study those origins scientifically and not to allow such conspiracy theories to contaminate our thinking. And this theory was one of the worst.
虽然有这样的一个声明，但是您也注意到，之后这么长的时间里头，关于病毒的起源、阴谋论等各种说法此起彼伏，甚至有人说是比尔盖茨他们研究室实验的。作为专家，您怎么看待这些声音？我们需要认真听吗？
At one level, many of these opinions are laughable, but I'm afraid we do need to take them seriously. In the European Union, there's been a study of some of these theories, this disinformation, and some of them are truly frightening. For example, putting out stories around the dangers of a potential vaccine, that somehow the pandemic has been manufactured by the media, and that the virus is not a risk factor for populations. So it's very important that we do take these rumours seriously, and it's very important that we show that they are false. So it's a very unfortunate aspect of our media landscape today that rumours act almost like viruses. They spread, they infect, and they cause harm to people and to populations. And we need to be as careful about eradicating rumours as we need to be careful about controlling the virus.
那么，对于病毒的源头和各国对于自己0号病人的寻找，作为专家，您的态度是什么？
I do not believe it's helpful to search for a patient zero. One of the lessons of the AIDS pandemic back in the early 1980s was that there was a great effort to search for patient zero, who was responsible for super spreading HIV infection in the United States. A great deal of effort went into searching for patient zero. People thought they found patient zero, and that person was named and discussed in the media. But many years later, it was discovered that he was not patient zero at all. So the problem with searching for individuals who are thought to have started the epidemic is that it can be highly stigmatizing and discriminatory and not very helpful and certainly not scientific. However, we do need to understand the origins of the virus and where it came from. This is a virus that most likely jumped from an animal host into a human population, and that means that we need to understand the circulation of the virus amongst animals, and we need to understand how it came to jump from an animal into a human being, and then we need to try and eliminate the circumstances that led to the virus circulating and jumping into human populations. So that is the objective now, to understand where the virus came from in its animal population and to make sure that we reduce the risk of that virus jumping into a human population.
当然，我相信你也和我一样，都听到了这个世界上有一些这个政治人物会去谈论啊，中国你是源头，甚至会说你应该赔偿我们钱。这是世界防治传染病的一个传统吗？
Well, I think this is most unfortunate that people are blaming a country such as China for the origins of this pandemic. It's not helpful and it's not true to blame a country in this way. What we should be doing instead is dispassionately working as partners with Chinese authorities to understand the epidemic and do all we can to make sure that an epidemic doesn't happen again. China didn't want this epidemic. China isn't responsible for this pandemic. It's happened. And China, in my view, the doctors and the scientists who I know in China have done the most tremendous job in advising the government and in treating the population and in protecting the lives of Chinese citizens. I think China should be very proud of its medical and scientific community, and for international political leaders to be so critical of China is not only unfair, but it's plainly incorrect and factually untrue. We have a lot to be thankful for the Chinese doctors and scientists who have managed this pandemic.
1月30号的时候，世界卫生组织就对全世界发出了最高级别的预警，但是似乎很多人没有认真听。到今天，全世界确诊病例已经超过了300万。您认为大家为什么没认真听？
This is one of the mysteries in the recent history of the pandemic. Declaring a public health emergency of international concern on January the 30th was a warning signal sent by WHO to the rest of the world to take this pandemic threat seriously. What Dr. Tedros was doing was saying there is a virus and it's coming to you. Get ready for it. This innovation of having a public health emergency of international concern was first introduced in 2005 after the SARS outbreak in 2002-2003. And this was the effort of the world to take the threat of pandemics much more seriously. WHO is the most important authority in global health in the world. We should listen to its warnings, and sadly in this case, many countries did not, and thousands of people have died unnecessarily as a result.
是否也有另外的因素？您知道，在17年前 SARS 流行的时候，它只是更多的针对亚洲人，但是没有想到这一次新冠病毒却走遍了整个世界。
Yes, that's absolutely right. Although looking back at the history of SARS in 2002, 2003, in fact the virus did reach some Western nations, such as Canada, and the World Health Organization issued an alert when the virus arrived in Toronto. So we have understood in the past, within the lifetime of one generation, we have understood the dangers of viruses when they cross borders around the world. And indeed, after the SARS outbreak 17 years ago, the world's countries promised that they would act differently in the future. They promised that they would take the threat of virus pandemics much more seriously. And I'm afraid that what the latest pandemic shows is that we have not learnt the lessons of the dangers of a virus. And that's a tragedy. It is a genuine human catastrophe.
我注意到《金融时报》评价说您是英国防疫当中最大的批评者。他们为什么会这么说？
Well, first, the reason why I've been very critical of the UK government, but not only the UK government, the United States administration and many European countries, is because The Lancet published 5 papers in the last week of January. And those 5 papers tell the story of what has unfolded in the Western world in the recent months. Those 5 papers described a new virus. They showed that this virus was deadly, that it was related to SARS, that it was killing people and that the number of deaths was rising, that patients were being admitted to intensive care units and requiring ventilation. Those papers showed that there was no treatment for the virus. They showed that there was person-to-person transmission. They explained the importance of personal protective equipment. They explained why testing and tracing contacts and isolating people was absolutely key to controlling the pandemic. And they indeed also warned of the pandemic potential of this virus. We knew all of this in the last week of January. But most Western countries and the United States of America wasted the whole of February and early March before they acted. That is the human tragedy of COVID-19. Thanks to the work of the Chinese doctors and scientists working in international collaborations, all of this information was known in January. But for reasons that are still difficult to understand, the world did not pay attention.
我们注意到，英国首相约翰逊不幸感染了这个新冠肺炎之后呢，痊愈之后，他的态度发生了很大的转变。您是否觉得现在英国在防疫方面已经走在了正确的道路上？
I do believe that we're on the right track. I watched Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday this week give a statement outside 10 Downing Street, and the difference in the way he spoke was striking. I believe before his illness, I don't think he understood how serious this condition was and what a threat it was to British society. But the man I saw speak on Monday was somebody who had come very close to death, and he now understands how serious this is. And I believe that our country is on the right path. We have locked down. We are taking issues like physical distancing very seriously. And I believe that we will learn the lessons from the Wuhan lockdown and that we will use most of May to continue in quarantine and to plan for a slow and gradual recovery. So I am now very pleased that we are doing the right thing. My regret is that it took so long to do so.
4月18号的时候，我们注意到《柳叶刀》上发表了这个相关的社论，强调中国经验和美国经历。首先，我很想知道，从专业的角度来看，您是怎么看待中国这次防疫的经验可供世界分享的？重要的是在哪儿？
Well, I think China's experience is that you acted quickly and decisively. But I think there is a reason for this. I think that the experience of SARS was a surprise. It took the country by surprise. And I believe that the Chinese government vowed after the first SARS outbreak that this would never happen again. And I have seen over the past 2 decades massive investment in hospitals and healthcare in China, huge investment in universities and scientific research. And that meant that when a new outbreak took place in December last year, it had the scientific capacity and it had the medical capacity to deal with the outbreak. And it also had the political capacity because the country understood that the threat of a SARS-like pandemic posed a grave danger to Chinese society. In Western Europe, we looked at this threat in a very different way. We saw the threat as not being from a SARS-like virus, but being influenza. And I think that because we've thought about the risk of a pandemic being another wave of influenza, we didn't take that threat seriously. We thought that influenza is a relatively mild illness, that the virus could pass through communities and that we could generate immunity, which we call herd immunity, in our country, and that would then protect us. But that was a fatal error of judgment. You got it right, we got it wrong.
在这篇社论当中，特别谈到了美国经历，当然是持批评态度。我注意到您刚才谈到美国错过了整个2月甚至3月初。除此之外，您还在批评他的什么？他做错了什么？
Well, I'm a huge admirer of American science and medicine, and the doctors and scientists leading the response in America are doing a very fine job. People such as Anthony Fauci, who directs the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and Dr. Deborah Birx. Both of those individuals are very fine people. What is very disappointing is seeing the politicians who are, for example, giving credibility to conspiracy theories, who are promoting treatments that have no evidence to support them, and who unfortunately are damaging the potential and prospects for global collaboration by being so openly critical of other countries, such as China, and organizations such as the World Health Organization. I don't think that's a helpful response. What we should be doing is working intensively together to address the challenge of this pandemic. Dividing countries, dividing peoples is not the way to confront a threat to humanity, which this virus is.
就在3月21号的时候，《柳叶刀》发表了一个社论，要求希望保护所有的卫生工作者。那么，对于曾经经历和现在还在面对疫情的全球的这种医护工作者来说，您觉得我们最该保护他们什么？
Yes, I think what we've learnt in the last 3 months is that health workers who have been on the front lines of fighting this pandemic are the moral backbone of our society. They largely work in an invisible way. We don't see nurses and doctors in the streets working. They work behind closed doors in hospitals and in clinics. But we have to be so grateful for their work. They've been working in zones of extreme danger with a virus that is unpredictable and lethal. Sometimes they've been working without proper protective equipment, but they've been going to work, doing their jobs, saving lives, protecting patients, quietly and successfully. And I think all of our countries owe health workers a great debt of gratitude for what they have achieved and, of course, what they are continuing to achieve in our societies. And I hope one of the lessons of this pandemic is that we pay greater attention and respect to our health workforce. They are such an important part of society, and we have a great deal to be thankful to them for.
在中国防疫的很关键的时刻，我不止一次因为看到医护工作者的那种努力而有想流泪的冲动。我不知道您是否也经常会有这样的时刻在这段时间里。
Yes, absolutely. I must say that watching the nurses and the doctors who've been literally fighting this virus on the front line of the pandemic, it's been an inspiring experience, a very moving experience. And, very sadly, many hundreds of health workers across the world have died in those front lines, in the trenches, so to speak, fighting this pandemic. And I hope that we are able to commemorate their memory. They've been martyrs to a great struggle.
作为国际权威医学期刊，今年1月以来，《柳叶刀》系列期刊以最快的速度发表了大量有关新型冠状病毒的文章。其中就包括来自中国学者和医务人员的投稿，以此向世界发出预警。比如1月24号，《柳叶刀》发表武汉地区2019年新型冠状病毒感染者的临床特征一文，第一作者来自武汉金银潭医院。文章对比了中国首批41例新型冠状病毒感染者和 SARS 感染者之间存在的部分相似症状，可能存在人际传播。截至4月30号，《柳叶刀》系列期刊共发表521篇各类型的疫情相关文章，其中包括曹斌教授团队的瑞德西韦治疗成人重症 COVID-19 一项随机双盲安慰剂对照的多中心临床试验，王晨院士团队的方舱庇护医院应对公共卫生紧急状况的新理念，乔杰院士的2019 NCOV 受感染孕产妇的关键风险是什么等论文，从多角度介绍了中国医生在抗疫过程中获得的宝贵经验。
我注意到，从这个疫情开始发生以来呢，在《柳叶刀》杂志上发表的来自中国的专家和医生的论文呢，数量明显增多。比如说，最新的是曹斌团队发表的关于瑞德西韦这个药的疗效的论文。这段时间您怎么选择来自中国的这些论文？
Yes, China is now a scientific superpower. 20 years ago, we didn't receive many papers from China, but now China is one of the leading countries submitting scientific research to the Lancet. It's very difficult to choose papers, but the test that we apply is, will this paper have the biggest impact for an international audience? And Chinese science is now world-class, and much of Chinese science is absolutely relevant and right for an international audience. You have great global institutions and great scientific leaders, and I must say it's a tribute to the investment that has been made in the country during the past 20 years. And as I say, it's one of the important factors that has led to your successful response to this pandemic.
4月2号的时候，发表了来自中国王晨院士团队关于方舱医院的这个论文。方舱医院是包括我自己都印象非常深，在抗疫的过程中起了很重要的作用。您怎么看待方舱医院的这个实践和这篇论文？
I think the innovation of these shelter hospitals was one of the most important elements in your successful defeat of the pandemic in China. The idea of creating temporary, huge shelter hospitals out of pre-existing buildings where you could take people with mild to moderate disease, where they could be looked after, where they could be triaged or referred to other hospitals if they became much sicker. This was a brilliant, brilliant innovation because, first of all, it allowed you to protect your other hospitals to make sure that they did not become overwhelmed with sick patients. Second, it allowed you to create the space for the wave of sick patients that came. It allowed you to effectively quarantine those patients within this shelter hospital, and it provided a very safe space for their well-being. So I think it was a very, very important element of your successful response, and again, an important lesson for other countries to learn from.
在中国防疫很紧张的时候，看到有中国的作者在《柳叶刀》上发表论文，会有一些批评的声音。你们应该急着去救人，而不是发表论文。
Well, it's not an either or. What has happened in the past 3 months is that your doctors and scientists have done both. They've both been looking after patients and saving lives on the front lines, but at the same time they've been learning the lessons from their experience. So when they write up that experience and publish it in a scientific journal, don't think of it as a paper in a journal. Think of it as a way to communicate with the rest of the world. If we didn't have the evidence from China that we've published from January right the way through till just yesterday, then we would not have a reliable foundation of knowledge to understand how to address this pandemic. So what we are thankful for is that Chinese doctors and scientists have written up their work and have been able to inform the rest of the world. I think what it shows is the responsibility of China as a country, the responsibility it has shown to the rest of the world, to be a good friend to the rest of the world by telling its story, sharing its story, and helping other countries to understand the dangers that they face. So I think we have to be thankful to the doctors and scientists in China who've taken the time to do that. I think it shows China to be a nation of great success when it's able to tell its story in the way that it has done.
其实我们很多人都注意到，您一直在关注，很长时间的关注中国的公共卫生系统。您曾经说过这样的话：占世界总人口1/5的中国，在世界公共卫生的系统当中的重要性似乎没有引起大家足够的重视。您为什么会强调这一点？
Yes, I think that is true, that China has not been seen as a superpower in medicine and medical science. But I think that this pandemic has really shown the strengths of China. And I hope that one of the lessons of the pandemic will be that China will be embraced by the rest of the world for the contribution it has made. It is indeed 1/5 of the world's population, and so has a great responsibility to protect and advance the health of that population. And I believe that it has done so over the past 20 years, and especially we've seen that during the past 2 to 3 months. I emphasize again, it's most important that we collaborate and cooperate. We should be putting a friendly arm around our colleagues in China and welcoming them into the global community of medicine and science, side by side. And I believe that's one of the important objectives after this pandemic.
我也注意到前2天您在连线CNN 的时候，也在批评美国的防疫。我就替您担心一件事儿。您知道这个世界上有一种声音说，如果要说是表扬中国、批评美国，会是政治不正确。您担心这种说法吗？
Well, I regret that the discussion of this pandemic has ended up being interpreted as part of the geopolitical struggle of nations. It shouldn't be the case. This is a threat to the health of our populations, nothing more, nothing less. We should be working together to face down this threat. I don't want to see accusations thrown at countries. It's not helpful. It's not going to advance peace and development. It's not going to solve the challenge of this pandemic. Far better to sit down, work together, trust one another, so that we can solve problems that we all share. So I regret the criticisms that have been thrown out by political leaders, and this is one of the reasons why I want to be on the record and thank my friends and colleagues who work in medicine and medical science in China for what they've done. Because, as I have said, I think that we owe them a great deal, and it's important to put that thanks on the record. They do not deserve criticism. They deserve our gratitude. And that is perhaps the most important point I wish to emphasize here.
今年是您走进这个柳叶刀整整30年，没想到是以这种大的疫情来纪念您的这个30年。我注意到柳叶刀在整个的疫情期间反应开始变得非常迅速，甚至会同时刊登，比如说中国团队关于这个瑞德西韦药物的和美国的团队不同的这种看法。我想知道，您特别希望柳叶刀系列杂志在疫情当中发挥怎样的作用，扮演什么样的角色？
Well, our role really is to, we want to publish the very best science from around the world, and we want to then be a platform where that science is not only published, but can begin to make a difference to advance the health of peoples worldwide. So it's very important to us to act as, in a sense, a midwife. We want to help give birth to great scientific work that can then go on in the world to make a difference. And so that's why it's so important to us to listen to our friends in all countries of the world, to work collaboratively with them in a very friendly way in order to help them tell their story about their science to the rest of the world. So for us, our work is all about partnership. It's all about collaboration. It's all about listening. And then it's about working together to get that work to the widest possible audience. And I've had the privilege of 25 years as editor of The Lancet to be able to work with some truly tremendous scientists from countries all over the world. And we have a great medical scientific community on this planet. And I want to be able to show people the contribution that it's making every day to advance the health and well-being of peoples. So that's, in a nutshell, what The Lancet is about.
这次疫情之后，您希望世界公共卫生领域发生怎样的改变？我们面对如此大的这种病毒的态度和做法应该发生什么样的改变？
Well, it's certainly true that after great events like this pandemic, the world will change. But in all honesty, which way the world will change, that is a question that we do not know the answer to yet. But broadly, we have two paths. One path is the path of greater collaboration, cooperation to help protect one another, understanding that the health of every person in China affects my health and my family's health, that my health affects your health, that we are all interdependent and we have to work together to solve our problems together. That's one path. The other path is the path of division. the path of not working together, of damaging organizations that promote cooperation, and instead thinking that one can solve problems on one's own, that one doesn't need to cooperate. Now, this pandemic has put into stark contrast and reality those two paths. And right now, as we're speaking, I don't know which path the world is going to take. The path to cooperation or the path to division. So it's up to all of us, I believe, it's up to all of us to show that the path towards cooperation must be the path that we take as a collective humanity. And I hope that China can be a strong voice in supporting the world taking that path towards cooperation.
我非常同意您的看法。我当然不希望他向坏的方向去前进，向好的方向前进。您是否可以多提提中国可以更多的发挥怎样的作用，才能帮助他向更好的方向去走？
That is a great question, and I will answer that question with humility, if I may. Over the past 20 years, China has invested massively in health and in science. But in the meetings that I go to around the world, I do not believe that China is effectively represented in international conferences and international events. I would like to see more Chinese leaders in medicine and science on the world stage. As you rightly say, China is 1/5 of the world's population. But at big international events, at events that shape the direction of the world, are 1/5 of the participants from China? No, they are not. So I think the next phase in China's leadership should be to think about how its medical and scientific leaders can take a greater role in international affairs. I want to see some of the people who I know and who I respect and like a great deal and admire in China take on a more global role. I want to hear China's voice more in international affairs. I want to see a stronger voice of China on the international world stage. And hopefully one of the results of this pandemic will be to strengthen China's voice in the world.
有一个问题是，周围的人听说我要采访您，让我一定要问您的。按照现在全世界防控的这种状态，这个疫情在世界上得要多久才能够慢慢的消失掉，或者说是结束？您的看法是什么？
Oh, that's a very, very big question to ask. It's a good question. What we learnt in Wuhan was that a lockdown that lasted from January the 23rd till early April, around 10 weeks, was successful in extinguishing transmission of the virus. Now, that means that the first wave of the pandemic could be ended after a 10-week lockdown. There is, of course, the danger that the epidemic could come back. And the only way to truly prevent an epidemic from coming back is to have a vaccine that you can immunize the public with, that can protect them in the future. So I think that what we do now is we have to maintain some of the protections that we've had, such as physical distancing, such as being very careful in our personal hygiene, washing hands, our cough etiquette, so to speak, and making sure that we don't give any chance or opportunity for the virus to start transmitting again. But I think over the next 6 to 12 months, it is very likely that we will have a vaccine. And I hope that by this time next year, it will be possible to start immunizing our populations. And that's the way that we can truly protect ourselves from this virus.
好，最后一个问题，有很多人会去关心，柳叶刀的总编，您在防疫期间是否都是很严格的隔离在家里头？你的对策是什么？
Well, thank you for asking. Yes, I'm in a little room in my home, and I'm in quarantine. I've been in quarantine now since towards the end of March. I expect to be in quarantine for another 3 to 4, maybe 5 weeks. And it's both strange not to be able to go to work or to see friends. But on the other hand, it's actually also a moment where I can reflect and think about the meaning of this pandemic. I can communicate with my colleagues at The Lancet on a daily basis. And actually, you know, one very interesting consequence of this pandemic, it's brought us closer together. I think being isolated has meant that we've all worked harder at being closer, if I can put it like that. We've all worked harder to understand one another and to be kind with one another. So that's a very strange result, I think, of this pandemic. Yes, we've all been driven home in quarantine, but actually we've come closer together and we've learnt to value one another more, I think, than before the pandemic. And I hope that that will be a long-lasting consequence, that we value each other more than we did before.
我非常同意你的看法，因为我强烈的感受到，此时我跟您的内心距离非常之近。看您头发的长度和您的这个状态，应该说是状态非常不错。保重，希望中国再见。
Thank you very much. I look forward to coming to China again very soon.
大国将相。